Good morning, welcome to the first of our live Productronica shows from Munich. We've got a packed show for you this week. This is the very first of our presentations. And my first guest joining me this morning is Anne-Marie Dutron. She's the Chief Technical Officer for Semicon Europa. Welcome, Anne-Marie.
Good morning, Trevor.
Good morning, nice to see you.
To see you.
So this is your first year here.
Yep.
This show traditionally is very much an assembly show. You have the SMT side on one side, and then you have the bare board PCB side on the other side. So where does Semicon Europa fit into that?
Okay. So Semicon Europa is a show which is showcasing manufacturer, equipment suppliers and material suppliers. For sure, the co-location with Productronica will allow some connections with all this community you just mentioned, SMT, assembly, and it's getting importance now in the system integration. So we are seeing more and more miniaturization for all these killer applications, automotive, IoT, mobile phones for sure, that needs smart integrations, and this is very important to source and to get the best and state-of-the-art of the discrete component inside the modules. So for the equipment manufacturer also, it's important to evolve and to increase their footprint in this area too. So originally you can see some suppliers from the front end that are also developing products for mid-end or back-end even.
Okay, yeah, because I'm familiar with all of the Semicon shows around the world, and Semicon West, for example, has got quite a heavy emphasis on back-end packaging, but Semicon Europe has always had this, has been very front-end, or that's been my impression.
Yeah, it's because, as you know, in Europe, the back-end activity, and we don't have major OSAT. All of them are mainly in Asia, and some of them are in US. But in Europe, we have mainly activities in research domain. So we have large RTOs like IMEC, Fraunhofer, Leti, who are really developing advanced technology, disruptive technology, for also backend. So I can mention one example is fan-out wafer level package, was developed many years ago from in Germany with Fraunhofer, Infineon, and then Nanium also now acquired by Amcor. So that's true that this smart integration with also the 3D TSV integration is key for this killer application I just mentioned. So that's why now people think systems now first, and the separation between front end and back end is now over. We are talking about mid-end, or we are talking about, let's say, system.
So there's a certain integration there. What about taking it further into the assembly side of the business? Do you see a time in the future where we're going to see back-end packaging coming into the assembly factory? Yeah,
we see that already from big IDMs who are integrating also this aspect in their fab, in their front-end fab. I can mention ST Microelectronics in Kroll, but also Infineon. They are integrating from the design start of the system, and then for sure when they go to production or prototypes, they need to test and assemble the whole system, the module. So they integrate this kind of equipment and process. So that's trend is materialized since several years now for image sensors, for other kind of modules where we need to pack many different functions, and that means that in the front end, typical front end manufacturing now, it's also mid-end and back end.
It's a very dynamic space, certainly. So just finally, what sort of key features are we likely to see at the Semicon Europa for visitors?
Today we are facing a huge growth. You can see at the end of this year the semiconductor industry at 20% growth. So it's a huge growth compared to the last decade. So we hope to see many changes in the future. So today is maybe the starting point where major changes will happen. We are struggling with manufacturing capacities in Europe, so maybe new fabs, new kind of fabs, maybe connected fabs, and joint fabs, we don't know. Because players need to join forces and to tackle IoT and automotive challenges. Only one company is not strong enough. So we may face and we may notice this major ecosystem creation or major partnership happen.
Yeah,
so
it's something that Ajit, your CEO, was alluding to at a recent meeting. A lot of more collaboration taking place.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So that's why it's key for an event like this to enlarge the possibility of connections and network.
Yeah, absolutely. Anne-Marie, I want to thank you for coming and joining us today.
You're welcome.
It's going to be
My
a
pleasure.
Hugely busy week. So if you're coming to Munich this week, make sure that you visit Semicon Europa. It's in Hall B1, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, in Hall B1. So joining me after the break, we have Walt Custer coming in to give us the global view on what's happening in the industry. But for now, Anne-Marie, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Sponsored by Panasonic. Smart factory solutions for any mix, any volume. Introducing the new NPM W2S, the ideal placement solution for manufacturers who value reduced setup and changeover time over volume.
And welcome back. My second guest today is Walt Custer, who's a very well-known consultant and analyst in the industry. He runs a Custer Consultancy, and of course he is going to be doing 3 presentations this week at Productronica. But Walt, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Let's start with a bit of a global outlook because the industry seems to be on a bit of a hiatus at the moment. It's a very rare time in the industry when all ships are rising, and if you look at almost every country around the world, Brazil included, they all seem to be doing well.
Yeah, it's a good year. I mean, last time we were here last year at Electronica, it was sort of, we were hoping for the best, but there's been a lot of years where it's been pretty depressing. And this year, across the board, if you look at industrial production, virtually every country in the world is positive growth in industrial production right now. So I guess we should enjoy this year a lot.
Well, we are enjoying it. How long is it going to last?
Well, I think the business cycle is peaking, but it's peaking at a high level, so that means we're continuing to grow. But we may not grow anymore, or it may not accelerate, but we seem to be doing well.
Great. So, you want to take us through some of the details?
Yeah, I have a chart up that we can look at. It talks about the current situation, and it says what you just said, that electronics industry is doing well. It's resumed. Almost all sectors around the world are expanding right now, and Europe is standing out as especially good.
Right.
It's had 3 very good quarters, and if you, the IMF just revised their forecast yesterday, and they cited Europe as the thing that's driving the global growth.
Really? That's interesting. So what do you think, as a small aside, what do you think the effect of this Brexit's going to be? Because the UK seems to be, a lot of UK manufacturers are saying they're either holding off or they're finding that they're not getting quite as many orders coming through.
But in total, it's not a big, UK isn't that big a part of the whole pie.
The whole pie, yeah.
And I think it's going to hit the financial community more, where a lot of companies were moving their financial operations to Europe rather than to be in the UK. But I think in general, if you look at Europe, you look at Asia is growing again, US is doing well, so it's pretty positive.
Yeah.
The other thing I would comment is semiconductor growth is far exceeding electronic equipment demand right now, partially because of memory chips and price increases, but I think there's a lot of double ordering, and that worries me, because whenever we start double ordering memory chips, you have a big boom, and then
it's followed by a recession or a pullback. But but it's also it's a great leading indicator, the semiconductor business, because usually that does it is happening for a reason. It's because they're going to build boards.
Well, and unless a lot of they're putting, I guess I don't necessarily agree with you that semiconductor chips are a leading indicator. I think they're a coincident incident.
Really?
Yeah, maybe there's a little bit of a difference, but there's better leading indicators like purchasing managed indices. the PCB growth by comparison to semiconductors are growing. I think in the third quarter they grew 22%. Third quarter on third quarter, and PCB industry is maybe 4 or 5%. So that difference I see is both increased semiconductor content, but probably also some extra ordering. And I still look around and I saw that there's geopolitical concerns. I mean, between the U.S. president and the guys in North Korea and the like, that's a very worrisome situation.
Of course.
Stop and think what percent of the memory chips that we use in the world are made in South Korea.
It's massively disruptive.
If that ever blew up, the electronic industry would be at its knees, because probably 80% of the memory chips are coming out of there.
I mean, I've long had this concern, for some of these major, and some of these major contract manufacturers have offset this a bit by having strategically located factories in United States or Mexico and other parts of Europe. But you're right that if certainly for chips, for memory chips and things like that, and PCB boards, if something happened in China, for example, I mean, 85% of the world's PCBs come from one country.
So we, as good as it is, we shouldn't pat ourselves on the back too much, because there is a vulnerability there.
Right.
And I think we have some very unstable situations that hopefully won't get any worse.
Yeah, certainly. Okay.
I brought up a slide about Global Purchasing Managers Index, because I think that is a good leading indicator.
Okay.
And it's an indication of manufacturing activity, and you get that for every country. And worldwide right now, it's above 50 is an expansion, and it's still growing. And Europe, if I have this on the next one, is a 7-year high.
Wow.
So there's a lot to be said on.
Absolutely.
That things are going well. And these are the things I look at first. When these start going negative, or at least diving, then I think we'll worry. I worry some when semiconductors are out of balance with end market demand.
Yes.
And the second thing is I watch these things. So this is still looking pretty good.
Right. So this is the Purchasing Managers Index, purchasing managers of semiconductor
what they
devices.
do is they ask people whether they're buying more or less, or deliveries faster, slower, and they do that for each country.
Right.
And a value above 50, it's called the diffusion index. So above 50 means that manufacturing is increasing. Below 50, it's declining.
Right.
So you can see right now, worldwide the Eurozone was about 57, which is the highest it's been since about 2010 or 11. So that's further indication that Europe is moving along pretty nicely.
It's looking very good. It's quite an impressive graph.
The other thing we look at is electronic equipment growth, and that's growing at about 4.5% right now. It had been negative for a while. So around the world, electronic equipment is expanding.
Well, I think we can bear that out with a lot of our customers are doing pretty well at the moment. The expansion of equipment sales. That seems to be no sign of slowing up at this point.
Another thing that I brought up on a chart is how Taiwan and China are doing. And if you look at the far right side of that chart, it's at the highest level in about 4 years. So China's rebounded. It's a very seasonal business because it's the Christmas season that builds up. But you can see this is data through October, and the October data is the highest it's been in 4 years.
Really?
So that's encouraging that China, Taiwan, and Asia are back.
Right. Because it's hard to get data out of China. Taiwan a little bit is a bit better.
But most of these companies that are Taiwan listed companies actually manufacture in China.
Right. Okay.
So I take that as a pulse of Taiwan, China, and the nice thing about these companies, they publish their financials monthly, 10 days after the month closes, so you get an immediate what happened.
Excellent. Okay.
How are we doing on time?
Yeah, we're doing well. We're doing fine.
See, I have a chart here that shows growth of the supply chain, and you can see globally the third quarter is looking pretty good.
Yeah.
And notably, what's up is semiconductors and semiconductor capital equipment and PCB processed equipment. Virtually everything is up. A couple of the smaller things like business and office equipment are not up, but globally, we're getting
Right.
good growth for the whole supply chain.
Is this a good quarter though? Is this generally a good quarter in the year for equipment sales?
Because this is versus the same quarter the year before.
Yeah.
So it's not, you're not looking at seasonal effects.
Okay.
You're looking at organic growth.
Organic growth. Wow.
Okay, so
That's
you
considerable.
know, and this has been all red for a long time.
Wow.
So this is an impressive quarter,
Isn't it?
You know, it further.
30% up on process equipment. That
Well,
is huge.
and that one is a little bit iffy because I have about 15 companies in that.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people like Orbitech and Nordson and people like that.
Right.
Some of them add product lines and things like that, but everybody is doing well right now.
Mm-hmm,
I mean, if you look at and you look at all the end markets, and they're all doing well.
Great. So, anyway, I think you've got quite an extensive number of slides and presentations that you're going to be giving here this
and
week.
which I'm going to offer to the audience now if they can email me. So we want to.
Yep, certainly do that. So if you're visiting Productronica this week, of course, then please come and attend one of Walt's.
They're at 3:30 every day
3:30 every day
There's
in the
speakers-
Speaker's Corner
in A1,
in A1, that's right.
and
if you can't make it to Productronica, then you can get a copy of the slides.
and I'll go forward to the end. But if you send me
Yep.
an email,
Yep.
bear with me a minute.
If you send your email to Walt, he'll be happy to send you a copy of the slides, and you can get that.
If you send it to Walt at custerconsulting.com,
Yep. Okay.
I will send you the presentation I do at
Get Productronica.
Productronica.
Excellent. Okay, so make sure and sign up for that. Walt, thank you very much for joining us
Pleasure.
today. It's been a pleasure as always, and we look forward to your continued columns, of course, in Global SMT.
I think I'm on my 18th year.
He's at 18th year doing a monthly column in Global SMT and Packaging. That's wonderful. It really is. It's a great snapshot of what's happening in the industry at the time. So we'll be back after the break with more information about Productronica. But for now, thanks, Walt.
Delivering innovation for over 34 years and backed by employees worldwide, Nordson Syntec's team of experts are ready to support your next adventure.
Welcome back to the third segment in this morning's show. We want to talk about, obviously, the huge program we've got coming up for you this week. We're going to kick off about 1:30 today with the actual official launch of Hermes. That's the new software platform, which is a combination of about 20 different companies that have banded together to launch a new collaborative software for Industry 4.0 Smart Factory. That's going to be followed by the industry debate on that very topic. What is going to be the official machine-to-machine software that the industry is going to adopt? And there's quite a few different options out there and a few newcomers that have come into the scene on that. Walt Custer has his outlook at 3:30 this afternoon, and then of course at 6 o'clock tonight we will be doing the Global Technology Awards. The program coming up for Wednesday starts off with another morning show like today, and followed that by a panel discussion on robotics and the impact of 5G and Bluetooth on the factory floor. At 10:30 we have another panel discussion on selective soldering and the different solutions that you can get with selective soldering systems. Going forward to Thursday, we will have a stencil printing versus jet printing panel discussion for you. And on Friday we will have two panel discussions, one on metrology in the inspection process and another one on automotive reliability and testing. Lots of guests joining us through the week, lots of other videos we'll be taking throughout the show, so please keep tuned to Global SMT TV. But for right now, this is Trevor Galbraith saying thank you for joining us.